everybody, and welcome back to Feeling Seen, the podcast that talks about the movies that make us feel seen. And my guest today, it's always a treat when we get to have an author on, when we get to have a writer, because these are the people, you know, such as myself at times, we are paid to do the deep dive thinking. And so chances are you're not going to ask a writer a question that, like, hasn't occurred to them at all yet. Or, like, they've thought about it, they've ruminated on some permutation. And this writer we have with us today is the author of books including Brat Pack America, Practical Classics, Bookmark Now, and the new tome, Break the Frame, Conversations with Women Filmmakers. It includes said conversations with such directors as Cheryl Dunye, Amy Heckerling, Deborah Granick, Jessica Sharzer, who I know, and Alice Wu, among quite a few others. So, Kevin Smokler, what do the people need to know about you in addition to all that before we get started here today?
Oh, Jordan, first of all, thanks for having me. I love your show, and I'm really...
Thank you so much. That's so wonderful of you to say.
I'm really honored to be on it. The thing I usually tell people is that I am the consummate late bloomer. I think it was a combination of growing up in a university town where everybody around me seemed between 18 and 22 and sort of suspended in a state of late adolescence.
May I ask which university?
University of Michigan. I'm from Ann Arbor.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
And also looking younger than I am. I've always looked 5 to 10 years younger than I am, to the point I played high school tennis, and I would have to bring my transcript to prove that I was actually in the 9th grade and could play on the team.
You're like, I was actually a college senior and just kicking ass out there.
Right. And they were like, you didn't just come from the playground and, like, you know, with your wooden junior racket or something. Yeah, I had a lot of that. So looking younger than I am, growing up around college students, I think for some reason I've always kind of bloomed late. And I had a lot of time in my 20s and early 30s where I sort of didn't know what I wanted to be and what I was supposed to do. And now I do. And so consequently, I always feel like I'm running out of time. I think I'm going to be 90 and be like, I've made up my mind. I'm all set. Let's go. Right. And I'm not going to be able to get out of bed to execute on it. But.
Well, I mean, you're 3 books deep. Do you feel like you've written a book yet? Or you're like, I've still got to become an author?
No, I do feel like I've become an author.
Okay, great, good.
Yeah, but I've never written anything personal, so I'm still waiting for that. When is the right time to include 40% me instead of 10 in these books? And I'm afraid I'm going to be 67, and people are going to be really sick of hearing me talk about me in person than to sit down and read about it. Yeah.
Well, who for Break the Frame was or were the couple of catalyzing filmmakers that got you started wanting to do this project and build it out into a whole book-length amount of interviews?
It started from my previous book, Brat Pack America, subtitled A Love Letter to 80s Teen Movies, which I finished in 2016, and I got to spend a bunch of time with Amy Heckerling on that book. So the legendary Amy Heckerling.
Truly.
So she's the big reason why I had the idea for the book in the first place. And then around the time I did several interviews with her for that book. There was an article in Vulture, I believe, that was by Kyle Buchanan, and it was called 100 Women Directors.
A legend in his own right. A legend in his own right.
The article is called 100 Women Directors that Hollywood should be hiring more often.
I remember that. That list ended up printed off in front of a lot of studio people going, oh, fuck.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. And I love a list because I'm not really trusting of my own judgment. So I really like when people say this is what you should be paying attention to. So I sat down with that list of 100 women directors, and I'm like, 103 of these have directed my favorite movies. And so, and then I would walk around with the list and say, have you seen all of Deborah Granick's or Catherine Hardwicke's or Ava DuVernay stuff? And I would just get a lot of, tell me what they've done. And I would name one movie and people would be like, great. And then I would name another one and they'd be like, huh?
Right.
And there was this kind of tacit assumption that every woman who directs a movie has only directed one, and we should all be very surprised when there's more than one. And so that's really where I felt like I was onto something. And so the initial list of directors I wanted to talk to was like Jack Kerouac's Scroll from On the Road. It was a good 75 to 80 filmmakers. And my editor at Oxford was like, let's find a nice like number that kind of makes sense to the reader and that they can hold the book in their hand. And so we settled on 24.
And leave room for a volume 2, let's
one
say.
hopes. I hope.
The point you make about like to be like, oh, in my 20s or my early 30s, like, oh, what do I want to do when I grow up, kind of thing, in the sense of like a late bloomer, or that notion of being like on the tennis court and being like misidentified as a different level of potential than you probably possessed because of people making assumptions about your packaging. That can feel very much like being a woman in a professional space where a lot of baggage is put on your abilities, your motivations, your emotional stability, your values, perhaps before you even start the job, because you are living well woman. And I wanted to hear from you about that kind of connective tissue between you and your subjects.
I think if I wouldn't even call it a guilty pleasure, but if I have a thing that happens in movies and TV shows that always makes me happy, it's when it's the character who is underestimated and then, putatively walks into the office and they think they're the delivery person or the secretary and they end up being the boss. Like that is the scene that will get me every time. Maybe it's because
the pretty woman, big mistake.
Right,
Huge.
exactly. Yeah. Maybe because I was short and young looking and spent a good part of my life being underestimated or overlooked as I perceived it.
Sure.
And also because it feels like the scales of justice kind of righting themselves. And the feeling, if even for a moment, when watching a movie that we live in a fair and just world, is something that will get me every time.
100%. I am so grateful that I am still susceptible to that, because if it ever turns and it's like, this isn't doing it for me anymore, I'm going to be like, oh my God. Like, if that cinematic intervention ceases to provide the balm that it truly still does, like, I'm in the worst possible shape.
Oh, yeah.
I will bring us back to the center of the conversation, which we've established some threads that I think lend very well to getting started on your movie pick. So tell us about the character and the title that you have brought to the show today.
The movie I have brought is the legendary Real Women Have Curves.
Anna, hang on a minute. What's happening with the college applications?
I'm not going to college.
What do you mean you're not going to college? You're a smart woman. You have something to contribute to this world.
Well, my family can't afford college.
There are scholarships, grants, financial aid, all that stuff we've been talking about all year.
Mr. Guzman, I'm really sorry to have to say this, but you should probably spend your time helping somebody else. I have to go, but you were the best. Thanks.
This was a big deal. This movie was a paradigm shifting kind of deal when it came out. And my wife is younger than me, and I was like, we were watching it together, and I was like, I need to impress upon you, like, this kind of story feels like what we do now, especially if you like on television. This is not what we did when this came out in the 2000s. No.
And Jordan, I'm sure you know what this is like when you do what you do for a living. It's a little bit like a tax preparer in April. People are always asking you like, oh, well, do I file Schedule C or Schedule D? And like, I'm sure around Oscar time, I'm sure around the beginning of summer, people are always like, recommend me something.
Sure, yeah.
Or probably most of the year, actually. And you have to have stock answers to that, because or else you're just going to...
Yeah, you got to have things ready.
Exactly. And so for like 10 years now, my thing at the ready has always been Real Women Have Curves.
Okay.
Because I feel like the audience for that movie is way bigger than it actually was when it was first released, way bigger than the title would imply, way bigger than we all thought. And maybe history has already proven that to be true. But I have recommended that movie hundreds of times. I've sent DVDs to people. I mean, like Pablo Escobar dealing the stuff every which way, like passing it out on corn, like all that with that movie.
Yeah.
And I've never had an unsatisfied receiver of that movie.
I think it's a movie that really, because like I like rewatching it for this, it's a movie that really takes you by surprise because this was the HBO original movie meant something different back then.
Indeed.
Like it was kind of in a like it wasn't TV, it was HBO, and it was something where like the way streaming kind of turns out, everything has an original like all of the time now. Back then, that was like the only network that would put out, it wasn't like watching a Lifetime movie in the way that like the kind of popular connotation with a Lifetime like B movie sort of situation. It was like, this is going to be like, it's kind of a message. It's become like a movie of the week to it. Like some of my like most important movies growing up were HBO original movies, and The Band Played On, and adaptation of the Randy Schultz book, and Gia, for which, if it had been a studio-released feature film, it would have netted Angelina Jolie a leading actress Oscar. Like, no doubt about it. These were movies that were weighty, they were dealing with topics in a very look-it-in-the-eye way, and The Band Played On the AIDS crisis, as well as Gia, with queer characters. Like, these were movies that were willing to, like, put an edge on the conventional conversation that was not really, I think, so expected from programming at the time, especially like getting into the 2000s where things were so white and straight and skinny and no fats, no femmes, no Asians, like a mantra of like the gay hookup community. And I like watching this now, it really took me back to this place of like the notion of sort of like movie of the week, like very special episode thing. Like that was prestige when it came out of HBO.
Yeah. There was, I would throw the Tales of the City miniseries in with that too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
And from that and Gia and then The Band Played On, definitely this sense of, well, we tried to go the conventional way of releasing this as a studio film, and we received some version of the no fats, no femmes, no Asians rebuke from the conventional path. And so now here we are as an HBO original movie.
Yeah, they felt like they could be Sundance releases, like successful like Sundance's releases at the time when Sundance was really out of crest.
Absolutely. And so Anna Garcia, the lead in that movie, played by an actor that we may have passing knowledge with named America Ferrera, who was all of 17 at the time. I mean, that movie came out when I was in my mid-20s, so I was not a contemporary of the main character, but I had just finished graduate school. I was about to move to the West Coast to begin my adult life. So the whole sense of that movie, which begins around the main character's senior year and ends, I'm spoiling nothing, the movie's 25 years old, ends with her going to college. Like, the whole sense of the future is rapidly approaching, like really spoke to me at that time of life.
Are you a new worker?
Oh, this is my daughter, Rana.
Are you going to be working here full time?
No, I'm just helping out my sister until I find a better job.
Oh, me too. I'm just working here until I win the lottery.
America Ferrera is giving an all-time kind of bratty teen performance that really only honestly a teen actor could give. And it's such a phenomenal, because like you see how she is being limited by her family. Her high school teacher was played by George Lopez, the one who really believes in her, is kind of like coaching her to the next level. And he really believes in her potential to go on to an elite tier of higher education. And he has suggested that, like, I know somebody who works at Columbia. I think if you get this essay together, if you get this application in shape, I think you could get in. Obviously, her family, they are very working class. They live in like East Los Angeles. She schleps her way all the way, I think, to like Beverly Hills High School every day for class, and nobody really knows her experience there of growing up. Her dad works as a groundskeeper. Her mom works for her sister, who owns a garment like little factory in the garment district of Los Angeles. They sew dresses for big stores and malls, like your Bloomingdale's kinds of things, department stores.
Can you iron it a little faster? I need help with the hands, and we're never gonna make the deadline.
Stella, okay? It's not that I don't iron fast enough. It's that every time I finish ironing, I stop for a minute. I mean, to really look at the dress. I never realized how much work, puro lomo, as Mom says, is put into it. And then I wake up, and I remind myself that it's not for me. So I put a plastic bag over it and stick it on the rack, push it away.
She got a point.
And her family is really, her parents, mostly her mom, are really resistant to the notion of her leaving home. That's not what you do. You stay with your family, you stay with your people. And also, we don't have the money. We don't have the money, Anna. So this is your life. This is you. You're not better than this. This is where you belong. And it's her process intention of coming into what she wants while also being a jerk. Like, Anna, there is such a reality to the character of Anna that is so special watching it, again, where it's like, you're not likable all the time. Like, I do want to smack sense into you at various points of this movie, even if you are fundamentally correct and, like, I believe in your, like, feminist journey and overcoming circumstance, but, like, also keeping connected to roots and family, but also, you're kind of an asshole.
Ay, Anna, you're so selfish.
You expect me to do this dirty work for nothing?
This is dirty work?
This is a sweatshop. Don't you get it? You're all cheap labor for Bloomingdale's.
We are not cheap labor. How would you know what hard work is? All you've done is flip burgers. I'm grateful for what Ama has taught me, and I'm proud of what I do. Cosa.
I never wanted to work here in the first place, much less for nothing.
See the trouble you caused?
And I think that is what makes this movie feel so enduring when you watch it again, is it's not sugar-coated. It is not just like pablum of like, she's this like perfect figure that has no arc, and it's just like right the whole time, but you root for her because her parents are being mean. She too, she is a flawed leading woman. She is not necessarily a likable female character.
It's so true. And I think it's so true to being 17 at this moment in life and being weighted down with the fear of the future coming. Mm-hmm. And what's great about the performance and the character is also exactly what you're talking about. It's what makes the character not likable the whole time and gives her arc. How present she is, how present the performance is, and how the movie unfolds in this very leisurely way where in every scene we're exactly where we're supposed to be. Well, the dark side of that, particularly when we're not fully developed as human beings, is like we don't see anything beyond the present, meaning we don't see anything beyond ourselves. And so she's selfish and self-interested and has a hard time seeing how this point in her life has anything to do with anyone else, including, the family that she's spent her whole life with. One of the things I love about the movie is how the things the movie does best are also the things that show us how three-dimensional, for good and for bad, the main character is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, just something about your experience that you mentioned, like this notion of again, what am I gonna do? What do I really want? And a question that it's interesting. My wife is Swedish, and she's talked about when you go into university in Sweden, it's not necessarily like expected to go directly out of high school. It seems like a lot of folks go straight to work, and then college isn't like this escape where you go for 4 years and like you go to your classes and you get your degree, but you also have a lot of fun. There's a lot of parties, and maybe there's football. It's more like young people working full-time while going to school or part-time while going to school. And it's very much a concurrent, like, professional education track. And you kind of have to have that track of, like, this is the path that I am on very specifically as I'm going to school. And I feel like in university in America, you, like, kind of mostly figure it out as you go. And I wanted to hear from you, when you were in your period of, like, what do I want? Did you feel like was there a sense of like, I feel like I'm spinning my wheels, or like, I'm going to try a bunch of different things that I might have an interest in, but we'll see? Like, what was the sort of mentality of your like inertia or momentum in those earlier years of becoming, as you work up perhaps to 60 and you're still like just getting started? But like, what would you, in those kind of searching years of the 20s and perhaps early 30s, what was the kind of prevailing sort of at-rest mindset in terms of like how you were pursuing what you might want to do?
I think it came directly from my parents. I grew up with a certain degree of privilege where I wasn't going to get out of college and have, Uncle Sam kicking down the door and saying, pay up, pay up. Like,
were your parents, were they involved in university at all, or just you guys just lived in?
No, they had met there in graduate school, but they were not. They were not academics.
Beautiful.
But what that meant was the message I was given, and I'm thankful for it to this day from them is you don't have to have it all figured out, but you don't get to not try. You don't get to you don't get to not be working at figuring it out. So the labor you're putting in is really important, and the effort you're putting in is important. And it's something I carry with me to this day. I try not to engage in my career now. I try not to engage in work for the sake of work. But I'm a big believer in that thing that like cooks say, which is like, what is the first thing you do first? Like, it's not the hardest thing. It's not the easiest thing. It's not the thing that the restaurant is going to sell the most of. It's turning the oven on. Like I'm a real big believer in the momentum of getting yourself in a place where things that's happening is half the battle. And I think I learned that directly from my parents, ironically, from this time in life where I was completely lost and felt like I was really spinning my wheels. When I was unspinning, when I felt like I was actually going somewhere, I was listening to this thing at the time I found super annoying and intrusive, which was, you don't have to have it figured out, but you can't be so afraid of searching that you do nothing or avoid it. Like you have to be moving in some direction. You have to turn the oven on. You have to be putting pots down. Yeah.
For sure. And that is, I feel like that's a meaningful part of the story of Anna in this as well. It's kind of, it's a narrative device in like a kind of coming of age movie. Like, this is not the first time we've seen like the notion of like starting an essay, starting a story where like, you know, the movie begins with like a blinking cursor and like an empty page with just a title. And then by the end, like the characters writing their story, they're writing their letter, they're writing their essay. And that's what we go through a little bit here with Anna as well. The essay doesn't come like at the very end as like the final flourish, but it's something that she has to build up to because it's a personal essay. And she is not willing necessarily to confront what she truly wants and truly feels.
Where's the personal statement?
I didn't think it was necessary.
You didn't write one? You have to write one. Anna. I'm friendly with the Dean of Admissions at Columbia. If you write the essay immediately, I can get it to him, maybe get you in for the new semester in September.
Really?
But look, you need to write an essay.
About what?
Write about something you know. You can write about yourself.
Myself?
Why not? You can do this. I'll hang on to this till you bring me the essay. Go. Write.
And she has to find what is better and what is honest in order to put it down on paper. And so much of a career in anything creative is starting. It's starting. Like, that is such a high hurdle. But man, I feel like a crazy thing that I have observed time and again from people I know across like say fiction writing or film writing or like getting nonfiction books published. Fewer people finish things than you would imagine. And just the act of finishing something is like, it's not rarefied air, but like the dedication and commitment to follow through kind of, I think, would surprise a lot of people in how that can kind of give you an edge on the competition, because so many people just don't get to the end of the thing that they say they're going to do. And that is a huge fucking life lesson to learn in a creative path.
Absolutely. And how you, I mean, this is not like, the movie has other concerns on its mind other than this, but like how you convince yourself that, I mean, for me, it's like each day is another act of starting. And then you wake up one day and you're like, oh my God, that's the end right over there across the street, you know, like,
across the street. Yes.
I never thought I'd arrive here. And then you are all of a sudden. Like I never see the end coming until it's like across the street. But there is, the act of finishing is, you're right. It's kind of a superpower. And like,
it is.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about that movie is the last scene of Real Women Have Curves is equal parts an ending and a beginning. And it sort of doesn't feel the need to like emotionally put its chips down on one or the other. We see the character of Anna Garcia closing one chapter on her life and beginning another one in equal measure. And it sort of underlines what I think one of the big things we're supposed to take from that movie, which is like, it's not an either or proposition. Like succeeding, moving on to the next chapter in life does not mean chucking the previous one over your shoulder and never being part of it again.
I think one of the strongest things about the movie is the ending. Like we're feeling very positive about Anna. She's walking down. I think it's like Times Square. She's walking down the street in New York City. She's where she's supposed to be. She's where she wants to be. Her father and her are on like very beautiful terms. He's a sweet man. Her and her mother are like, they didn't, the last thing they said to each other before she left wasn't a fight. But it isn't a Lady Bird situation where like mom realizes that she has to like run into the airport and have a tender moment with her child so they don't leave it, you know, on bad terms as she gets on the plane. You have to just like, there is such a, the movie gives you, I would say, the respect of treating the situation in a very real way, where it's like, it's probably going to be a years-long process.
Yeah.
Of like getting back to a kind of ability of like these two characters to like look each other in the eye and be able to like be kind about it. Like when she goes back home for Christmas, her mom's probably going to give her shit. She's going to be hearing about it, how she's not at the house and like she doesn't know what's going on with their family. I think there is an integrity to the end of Real Women Have Curves that's like, yeah, that is how, like, with a win, there can still be something that is a challenge, but it doesn't have to sully the win. And the challenge doesn't mean something is over and done. It just means that is life and life goes on and you figure out how to solve it as you go.
God, I love how you put that. That's great. I mean, I was just going to say, like, I love that the last scene is in Times Square because, you know, she went to Columbia, which isn't anywhere near Times Square. And so this moment in this wonderful, subtle, yet very real way is not Anna's first day at Columbia. It's not her, like, you know, holding the blue and white flag and, like, opening the door of her freshman dorm room or something like that. Yeah. It's clear this is, like, weeks, maybe even a few months after she's been in New York and she's kind of used to it and she's probably exploring, and it's a far more interesting choice for the end of the movie that implies a lot of more interesting things and indicates like a future for the characters, which I love when any movie does. Like when you sort of immediately begin imagining what happens next, even though the movie's over. And I think you're right. Like the first Thanksgiving or Christmas home is bad news. But like,
yeah, she's gonna be ready to get back on that plane to New York after that first holiday.
Yeah, but I love that we're seeing Anna not at the beginning of the next phase of her life, but already in it.
It's time for a break, but I'll be right back with Kevin Smokler, and we'll talk about how his book about 80s teen comedies fits into the mix. And then stick around at the end because I will have one quick thing before I go about the list published this week from Variety of the 100 greatest comedies ever made. And I will be sharing my feedback on the top pick. And I'm not even going to tell you what it is here. You just have to go to the very end if you haven't seen it yet to find out. So stick around.
Ready, go.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
We got this.
With Mark and Hal?
Oh, you knew this one.
You can't put that out as an ad.
We just did. New episodes every week on MaximumFun.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Now it's Hewn in Rock.
Hewn in Rock?
Yeah.
How do you hew something in rock?
With a chisel.
There's only one Hugh in rock, and it's Huey Lewis.
And the news is We Got This with Mark and Hal is available every week on MaximumFun.org.
I walked right into that.
Need a gift for a Max Fun fan in your life? Or maybe you need some ideas to fill up a wish list of your own. Heck, maybe you just want to pick up something for yourself as a little treat? Well, the Max Fun Holiday Gift Guide is here for all of your gift-giving and gift-wanting needs at MaximumFun.org/gift guide. Of course, there's show merch like clothing, hats, bookmarks, stickers, even a candle. But there's also a bunch of other cool stuff made by your favorite hosts, like comic books, graphic novels, music, art, and jewelry. Go check out the gift guide and make sure you order soon so things get there in time for the holidays. MaximumFun.org/gift guide.
When you were growing up, did you have a hunger to get out of Ann Arbor?
Yeah, definitely. My mother's parents were divorced and lived one in New York and one in Florida. So I had been getting on airplanes to visit grandparents since before I could walk. So I think I've always carried with me the idea that it's a big, exciting world out there. It's mine to see whether or not, but I'm really missing out on an opportunity, a fundamental part of being alive if I don't. I definitely had moments of fear and doubt when I was getting ready to go to college, and I applied fairly early on in the process to the University of Michigan. And the University of Michigan is the kind of school where they'll tell you 5 minutes after your application comes in if they have room for you. So, rolling admissions, I think is the word for it.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay, yeah.
And so they were like, hey, congratulations, you got into the University of Michigan. It was like September 22nd or something in my senior year. And I'm like, well, good enough. Like that's a college and it's a pretty good one. And it's like, I don't have to go through all the solace of being a senior and everything that goes with applying to colleges and all of that. And I think my folks were pretty convinced that I would not grow up if I did that. But I would be home every weekend doing laundry and treating being in college like being in the 13th grade. And I think they were right. I didn't want to hear it from them at the time. I remember one of the maddest I've ever been at my parents is I said, well, I guess I'm going to Michigan. And they sort of shook their head and lifted up the rest of the college applications, which were big fat envelopes at the time. And they just said, Kevin, it's called going to college for a reason.
Wow. Okay.
And I think, my dad's from Detroit. So I came from a one native, one immigrant family in Southeast Michigan, which is ironically what I have now. My wife is from the San Francisco Bay Area. So we're a one immigrant, one native household now. And I think because Ann Arbor was filled with people, including my mom, who'd come from far and wide to end up there. That was very much in the air and in the water there. And I think my parents correctly saw that as a fundamental part of maturity and growing up. And like a big part of what is in Real Women Have Curves. Like I'm not a parent, so I don't know the kind of pain of like watching a kid be old enough to go off to college. And when I talk to my friends or parents, they say, God, it really hurts. But you know what? Like, that's the project. The project of being a parent is getting them to that stage. And like,
well, when did movies start to become a part of your experience meaningful enough to where you were like, I'm going to write books about these and the people who make them when I get older? Where did movies start coming into play for your life?
I came from a movie fan household. Like my parents were always watching movies. My father was the president of the Cinema Guild when he was a graduate student at the University of Michigan.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So the Michigan Theater, which is in downtown Ann Arbor and is a classic old movie palace, is sort of kind of holy ground for me. I remember being 7 and sitting in the balcony with my dad, and they had a screening of like The Wizard of Oz for kids, and he took me to it. And I'd seen the movie before. I knew what was happening. But the scene where, at the beginning, where Toto jumps out of Miss Gulch's bicycle basket and runs away, all the kids started applauding when that happened. And I thought that was just what you were supposed to do when you went to the movie. And so I jumped up on my seat and I yelled, "Go Toto! Go Toto!"
You're having your concert experience.
Yeah, my dad was yanking at my shoulders to tell me to sit down. I still remember that. And so it was that. And then in the 6th grade, a friend of mine who was equally into movies as I was a big fan of the old Siskel and Ebert TV show. And he had one of those large, like, doorstop volumes of Roger Ebert's reviews.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
And he gave me one for like my 12th birthday, and I just remember flipping through it and thinking, God, there's like movies are 100 years old and you can organize them this way and that way. You can just run in all of these different directions. You're always going to find something good. It was the print equivalent of like going to a great record store or like a mall or just some place with an immense bounty of something you loved. And that was really where it started for me. And then, you know, I reviewed movies when I worked at, you know, on college papers and later and, you know, like at newspapers and magazines and stuff like that. But it was always a subject that I felt like there was more to say than I could ever say. So it was perfect for when I started writing books.
When you were interviewing women for Break the Frame, was there, I mean, I'm sure you're going into any conversation with an open mind, but like, surely you had your favorites going and being like, oh, this is my kind of most anticipated. What was something that really, what was a filmmaker, I would say, that really surprised you with perhaps how you connected in a way that you didn't anticipate just through the textual aspect of their work, but like getting a chance to actually speak with them?
I mean, a few of them I knew. One or two of them I knew ahead of time. So I was already friendly with them. But for the most part, it was the first time I had spoken to them. And I really had an amazing experience with Ichai Vashrali, who won an Oscar for co-directing Free Solo and made Naiad
Right. Wow. Yeah.
And I had such 10 or 12 documentaries, and I think Naiad was her first narrative feature, and all of them, most of them, I would say 90% are in some way or another about people trying to do the impossible, which is something that I don't attempt to do in my life. I'm not that adventurous, but
sure.
One of the great things about being a movie fan is when you come across subjects that you wouldn't be interested in your normal life, but you're like, that is the making of a great movie. And also, like she said to me, like, nobody views me, probably in part because she does documentary and narrative and probably plain old misogyny and sexism. She's like, nobody ever views me as like a director who has a set of concerns they keep coming back to and over again. And
interesting.
And I'm like, of course I have the advantage of like sitting down and seeing all 12 of your movies in a week, and it took you 20 years to make them, but like...
Yeah, like I am so deep in like your past decades of your life condensed into 2 weeks of time.
Yeah. Absolutely. But it was just a treat. It was a treat being able to give someone whose work you admired that much, that degree of time and care, and then to share it with them. And there was always a little bit of, I hope I'm right. I hope I'm picking up on this. I had that with each director, like each one of them. I said, "This is kind of what I'm getting, or the themes you're interested in." And sometimes they were like, "Yeah, sure," and sometimes they were like, I did it over 30 years. You know, it's not like I was comparing A to C to J. Like
totally. In writing with the last 2 books you've done being about film, do you find that there is a common concern in deciding to write those 2 film books that brings you back to this sort of channel of publishing material 2 times in a row now? A book is not a thing you write in a day.
No.
Like, these are things that, like, you're committing to writing a book, you're committing to, like, a while of your life to a single project to get it out the door.
Yeah. 2. One is practical and one is more, I guess, like, spiritual, philosophical, like a tenet, like, that I like to live by. The practical one is... I love movies and books and music and culture more than anything. It's sort of how I define myself. Other than the people in my life, it's the most important thing to me. And yet, at the same time, I feel easily overwhelmed by the options and how I should be spending my time. I don't find myself to be a very good judge of that, and I don't entirely trust my judgment. So anything that participates in the act of organizing culture really speaks to me.
Okay.
And that was thematically what was behind Break the Frame and the previous book, Brat Pack America Love Letter to 80s Teen Movies, because I had this idea that the category of 80s teen movies was bigger than we thought it was. And I just wanted to sort of set out a big tray and lay them all down on it. And to be able to say that obviously The Breakfast Club is an 80s teen movie, but so is Back to the Future, and so is The Goonies, and so is The Karate Kid, but also so is House Party. And so is Over the Edge. And these are all very different movies from one another. They just happen to come out at the same time and have teenagers as main characters.
Obviously, in Real Women Have Curves, there's a lot of like assumption of how Anna's life should go that is being put upon her, that she's having to fight her way through to open her mind to just possibility. Not possibility of anything, but just like the possibility of what else she could be and what else there could be. And then talking to all these women who have defied expectation or categorization, specific filmmakers talking about making filmographies dedicated to defying expectation in a literal sense. Something like Free Solo, people just like a theme of it, like dedicated to achieving the impossible. And then it's the 80s is such an interesting, especially the 80s teen movie. I feel like it's such an interesting block of movies within this kind of conversational context, because it is, I think until now, very recently, that has still been the defining, I feel like, decade in terms of like the teen vernacular of the screen. And that is, I think it's interesting to put in conversation something that has crystallized so much in our mind, like sort of the epitome of like nostalgic desire, that like kitschy 80s that Stranger Things built an entire empire on, versus like the flexibility and the breaking of form and the coming through to potential and sort of like a fog of wandering about one's ambitions. Like, I wanted to hear from you about like writing about a most rigorously defined genre that sort of created all these boxes for us to either play in or play against, versus being someone who has like known the experience of searching for their own purpose for a prolonged period in their adult life.
God, that's such a good question.
I hope so.
No, it's great. I feel like I'm gonna have to circle it as if I've been hit on the head by it.
Do it. Yeah. We'll spiral our way down to the answer.
I think boxes are fascinating, in that they create something that goes in them and they create something that is an exception to them. When I set the terms for the 80s teen movie book, Brat Pack America, I had to say the 80s teen movie begins with Over the Edge, which literally came out the first week of January 1980, and ends with Heathers, which is which is the literal blowing up of the genre.
Well, yeah, so true.
And anything that came after belonged to the following decade, which meant that a lot of people got angry that Say Anything was a 90s. I considered it a 90s teen movie and not an 80s teen movie, because they were like, listen, it's John Cusack and it's.
You got to make the line somewhere. It's like not everybody gets invited to the wedding. There's a cutoff at some point. Like,
right. There's only so many chairs and tables and plates of chicken and and I was like, listen. It's John Cusack was in his 20s. He was not a teenager when he made that movie. And it takes place in Seattle. And it's like, it's by Cameron Crowe, who was on the eve of doing Singles, and like, which are all like the first great cinematic gestures of the 1990s. Like,
Right.
So that's how I made that distinction. I think a box sort of has as much power as you give it. I think as an organizational tool, it's very helpful. I have never been someone who can create from chaos. I have tons of admiration and no small bit of envy for people who can. The surrealist painters or jazz musicians or people who are just like, oh, well, give me a strawberry and a lamppost and a giraffe and I'll figure out how to make something beautiful out of it. Like, I've just never been that person. But I'm really into the idea that the box is, while you can see its edges, is deceptively large. I'm really moved by the box is always larger than we think it is, which is why I really welcomed the challenge to do a book about women film directors, because every question of why you was totally legitimate and fair, and I really considered it my job to show up in a really full way for that, and as full as I can, and to be aware of every potential mistake someone like me as a man could make. And have those all like in my front left pocket and say I'm not touching any of those.
Sure.
And it's meaning I never asked a question about like how do you manage directing and family life, because men don't get asked that question. Like,
sure, yeah.
And I never asked a question like I didn't get to talk to Catherine Bigelow, but would I ever ask Catherine Bigelow a question like, why do you make so many movies with male main characters? No, like that just betrays, I don't know, the first thing about her priorities as a director, because every Catherine Bigelow movie is about people who take on difficult jobs. Like, so, and I think this is all by way of saying that thing that motivates me as a person and as an artist, that idea that the box is deceptive is actually much bigger than we think it is really like why I love Real Women Have Curves so much. It's true for the main character, and it's also true for what people who aren't like the main character can appreciate in that. Like, I don't have to be exactly like Anna Garcia to feel seen by Anna Garcia's story. Like, I just dig that. Like imagine if there doesn't have to be a 1-to-1 correlation between the film's protagonist and like how it makes us feel welcome in the world. Like, imagine if there could be a 1-to-200. Like that's optimism, and I'm just a really like optimistic person in that way.
Well, I think the box being bigger than we think it is, I think that is the ideal note to go out on, to put the little bow on this box that we've made here for ourselves. And just thank you so much for coming and taking the time to chat with us here today, Kevin. I really, truly appreciate it. And an excellent choice to put into the cinematic conversation as you have clearly spent your life's work doing, being on the corner, singing out the song of Real Women Have Curves still.
Jordan, you're so welcome. And this was such a pleasure. Like, I would spend my morning doing this anytime. So thank you. I'm honored to be included. Thank you.
We're getting you built up to do the book where you write it that's like more of a higher percentage about yourself, and that we're doing the training right now.
Thank you. I'll probably be 90 when I get there. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much to Kevin Smokler. Break the Frame is out now, and we will put a link in the show notes to where you can pick up a copy. And given that it's the holiday season, if you are in a gift-buying mood for folks, there are a variety of authors who are friends of the show here at Feeling Seen, where you can go investigate their wares, like Tim Leong, Kevin Smokler here, Kyle Turner, Anna Bogutskaya. All of them are published authors, and you can fill hearth and home with a variety of wonderful books by contributors to Feeling Seen here, and you should do that. And we will also put a link to the companion podcast that Kevin made, where he speaks with several of the directors of the book, including Patricia Cardoso, director of Real Women Have Curves. And now that one quick thing before I go, I just got to give a shout out, which is not something you always want to do to a list of top such and such. I want to give a shout out to Variety's list of 100 best comedies of all time, because they, drumroll, really nailed it with their number one pick. They chose, for the number one greatest comedy of all time, they chose the original Naked Gun. And you know what? There are comedies I love more than Naked Gun, but I absolutely love The Naked Gun. I love the new one that came out this year. I love the originals. Honestly, 2.5 is my favorite, but I even like 33 1/3. I think for me personally, like if off the dome, my best comedy of all time is Airplane from 1980, which is on the list. It's on the list. I do think at a criminally low 62. I do think that's criminally low. But you know what? It only exists to piss people off. Like that's what lists are for. But hell, if you are going to make a list of best comedies and you are going to throw the man himself, also a star of Airplane, Leslie Nielsen, in his most iconic role in the top spot for a movie that is so enduringly, wonderfully, hilariously silly? Yes. I think there's a joie de vivre to that pick. If you are somebody who only came into Naked Gun this year, which the friend that I went and saw Naked Gun with had never seen the originals, we went and saw the new one together. She was having a riot, just like the entire theater was on opening night of the movie. It was the right crowd to be with. Get into that original trilogy. It is Thanksgiving this week. You could be listening to this as you do your final preps on the cranberry sauce. Who knows? If you're sitting around with the fam, wondering what to put on the TV that maybe everybody could agree on, there's no better choice. Unless you're with people who just terminally suck. There's just no better choice than the Naked Gun. So yeah, this is shouts out to Variety for doing this one right. Again, even I won't even get pissed that Airplane is at 62 because you put Naked Gun at number 1. A movie of a comedy vintage we really don't see anymore, which was what made the new Liam Neeson version feel so special. But a movie that is nonetheless eternal in its effectiveness and its appeal and its charm. Absolutely great stuff. So get this long weekend, make your way through every Naked Gun movie, if for no other reason. Listen, I know like 2.5 doesn't get the love generally that I give it, and 33 1/3 I think is considered sort of like a dimming of the franchise bulb at that point. But I'll tell you what, man, Leslie Nielsen is operating at full form in every one of those movies. So honor the memory of Leslie Nielsen this weekend, as well as entertaining your whole family by watching all of the Naked Guns, setting yourself up for either a first run at the new 2025 version or maybe a return to it since you saw it in theaters, because boy, is that worth the time. And that's the note we're going to go out on for good Thanksgiving vibes. That is our show. You can keep up with us wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that follow button wherever you are listening to get new episodes in your feed as they drop. Follow us to find out more on Instagram at Feeling Seen Pod. We are also on Blue Sky. Just search Feeling Seen. If you want to follow me, I am JorCrew on Twitter and Blue Sky as well, JORCRU. Our theme music is by Andrew Epen. Our producer is Marissa Flaxbart. Our senior producers are Kevin Ferguson and Laura Swisher, and this is a production of Maximum Fun.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
supported
directly
by you.